Welcome to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to college prospect evaluation with a fantasy football focus. With your hosts, John Arrington, Aaron Wilcox, and Andy Starr. This podcast brings you actionable strategies and player-driven analysis for your Devy, C2C, and Dynasty leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into the Heisman. Welcome to the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, John Arrington, and tonight we're going to be talking about the Heisman Trophy Award. We're going to talk about the favorites to do it. Last year we did something similar, and I think I did pretty well, but I can't do it without our master of ceremonies, the man who always has all the odds and everything. That's Andy Starr, and how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing well. We're enjoying the summer weather up here in Michigan. I've been camping, it seems like every day of my life this past month, which has been exhausting, and, it's hard to keep up in chats and drafts and stuff that are going on, but, we're having fun. It's nice to, get a little time with the family, while we're sitting here doing nothing throughout the summer, as far as, fantasy football related news is concerned, I suppose.
Yeah, it seems like everyone tried to get into soccer for a little bit. Luckily, the America lost yesterday. Not that I wanted them to lose, but now I don't have to hear about soccer ever again on my timeline. No, yeah, that was a rough one. But yeah, obviously having fun in the summer, but it's a downtime for just about everything. The summer and fall camps haven't started for college football yet. And so this is generally around the time where we start getting to looking at different odds, different lines and things. We looked to see if there was any like individual lines and not quite yet. It seemed more like, team lines as far as, records and whatever else it might be. And then obviously the Heisman odds. But you know what? We've had some fun with the Heisman odds in the past, played a couple games and had some fun, like I said. So I think we can do that again here tonight. Before we get into it, I mean, last year was obviously a little bit of a surprise with who did it. I wish, we probably should have gone back and listened to, what we actually said and who we thought was going to win it. I'm sure there was probably some Arch Manning in there. I'll say that I was definitely probably on that one right there and everything. But I wish we could have gone back and said, who we actually picked and everything. And obviously Fernando Mendoza probably not on that show if I had to guess.
He may have been. I know we mentioned Mensa during that show. I'm sure I mentioned Diego Pavia an inordinate amount of times. But I want to say we talked about Mendoza just because of Signetti and what he had done with Curtis Rourke the year before. And we're like, maybe, he takes Mendoza, because I remember we scrolled down the list at one point and said his name. So I do think I might want to go listen to that again and just see if we touched on it at all. But yeah, I mean, it's always a fun episode. We always like to throw a couple long shots out there. 2 years ago, I gave you like Ashton Genty at 100-1. Yeah, he didn't win the Heisman. He probably should have. It just seemed like Travis Hunter was gifted that award that year. Just because he's the two-way player. But, yeah, Genty was 100-1 in the preseason, and then all of a sudden he was like the Heisman favorite, going into November. So that was a decent call. It wouldn't have won you any money, but it would have, been exciting if you did make that bet earlier in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
but yeah,
that would have been the good news and the bad news. Like, you would have been really excited up until like the day of, and then you would have been not as excited.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could have cashed out, depending on who your bookie is. Sometimes they let you cash out early. But yeah, I mean, we'll hit some long shots, I'm sure, this tonight, and I know that you haven't looked at the list. I've just sort of glanced at the list, and this the FanDuel odds, which I'm sure they're very similar to everybody else's, and I was very taken aback by who number one is, and not in a bad way. Like, I'm all for it, but we'll jump into that soon. I think I've got an idea for how I want to, try and make it a game for you for at least the top guys here.
All right, so based on that, number one is still Diego Pavia, based on Andy's excitement. No.
Yes.
All right, well let's just go ahead and dive in. That's what we got tonight is Heisman odds. So we're gonna play a little game. Would you say top five? Or I have to guess the top
Yeah.
five.
Here's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'll give you give me your top five. I'll tell you which ones you had correct, or not. Which I'll tell you a number. Like if you get 3 out of the 5 correct, I'll tell you you got 3 out of the 5, and then you can swap out 2, and then I'll tell you if you've gotten better or worse, and we'll just keep going from there, I guess. If it starts to get dicey, I'll throw some hints in there, but for now we'll just do this. It's kind of unstructured here.
Okay. Well, right off the top of the dome, I'm thinking 2 Ohio State players, Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sand, have to be in the top 5.
Okay, you just go ahead and give me 3 more, and I'll
I'm
tell
sorry.
you how
I
many
thought
you
you
got
were.
right.
I thought you were telling me yes or no. I didn't know you were.
No.
Right.
I want to give me 5 right off the rip, and then I'll
Okay.
tell you how many you got right.
Okay. I like that better. All right. All right. So Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sand, Arch Manning. I'm gonna go Dante Moore and Darian Mensah.
Okay, you've got 3 out of 5 correct.
Ooh.
I'm not
Not
going to
as
tell
good
you
as I
which
thought it
ones you
was
got
gonna be.
correct, but I'll just say you got the second best odds, the third best odds, and the fifth best odds. So you're missing number 1 and number 4.
Okay. All right. At least tell me one that was wrong.
Okay, I'll give you one that was wrong. Dante Moore was wrong.
Dante Moore. Okay, that's surprising. I don't disagree. I agree that he should not be in the
Yeah.
top 5, but that is
He
surprising.
he was 7th, by the way. Dante Moore was
wasn't
7th.
he wasn't he top 5 last year? And didn't we talk about that? So it's kind of I think if I remember correctly, maybe that was
He may
later
have
on in the
been, yeah.
season, but I remember it being. I remember talking about like he should not be on this list, even though he obviously was at some point. All right.
I'll give you a hint for the 2 you have left. They're both
Okay.
quarterbacks.
Both quarterbacks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go CJ Carr and Lenore Sellers.
Okay. CJ Carr. Well, I'm messing it up already. All right. First of all right, I'll just say you've gotten the number 1 player now correct.
Ooh.
You're still missing number 4, and
Okay, so one of them was right. One of them
Lenore
was wrong.
Sellers. Yeah, Lenore Sellers. My God, he's way down the list. He's like 400 to 1.
Oh wow.
Don't put any money on the Lenore Sellers. This is crazy. Like the odds for all these guys are so long. Like
All right.
I guess he's 40 to 1. My bad.
Oh, maybe what? I probably need to be thinking about. I need to be thinking about teams that like the player would never be it, but like they're gonna like LSU, like Sam Levitt, USC, Jade Maeva, Michigan,
You're
Bryce
on the right
Underwood.
track, but the wrong team.
Oh, is it Keelan Russell, Bama?
Close. You're in the right conference now.
Oh man. Oh, is it Trinidad?
Yes, Trinidad Chambliss, number 4.
Oh
So
wow.
the ones you got wrong from your initial 5 were obviously Dante Moore, and then Julian Sayin is actually 6th. So you got out of the 5 you picked, they were all in the top 7. So that's pretty good.
Okay, I'll take
You
that.
just missed out on CJ Carr, which is what was surprising me, which I was telling you about. He's number one in Heisman rankings right now.
Oh wow. When you said you were surprised, I kind of took it as a hint. I really thought you were saying Darian Mensah was number one.
Yeah, no, I know. Well,
So I took
and
that
that
as a
would have
hint.
made
I'm like,
more
okay,
sense to me.
Mensa's up there, and and I was thinking that it was just like a free square, and then come to find out I was wrong.
Yeah, no, Mensa's 3, which I think that's fine, right? That's fair. But yeah, I think Mensa would have made more sense at number 1 than CJ Carr.
You know what?
But
Carr's
I'm
getting a
all here
lot
for
of love
CJ
right
Carr. I
now.
just don't know. Yeah, I just, here we are. We repping DLF. One of the Devy guys just put out a QB ranks where he's got CJ Carr as his number 1 guy in all of college football.
I saw that. Oh shoot, what was his name? We should look it up. But I saw that he had CJ Carr at number one, and I mean, I don't hate it by any means. I don't agree, but I also like CJ Carr a lot, so I do not hate it.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, he's getting a lot of love, man. Ever since the Peyton, or not the Peyton, the Manning Passing Academy. I've heard a lot of love about CJ Carr, and obviously a lot
That
of
brings me
smoke.
back. I was just gonna say it gives me PTSD from Will Levis. Remember when he came out of the Pat Manning Passing Academy, and everyone was saying how great Will Levis was.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I mean,
Thankfully,
there's
CJ
always
Carr
smoke.
actually is good.
We must have some
I was
kind
just gonna
of
say
echo going on tonight or something. I don't know, but it's we're talking over each other, so I apologize.
that's all right. I was just gonna say like at least CJ Carr is was good at football, statistically. So um, you know that it gives me confidence that it's not a Will Levis 2.0 type situation.
No, I actually take it to heart that he actually did well. There's obviously smoke that goes along with that. There was also talks about a few other players looking amazing and everything as well. But I mean, there was more talks about CJ Carr being awesome at the Manning Passing Academy, and then you start seeing stuff like this. Number one in the Heisman. You start seeing articles about him, like, hey, maybe he's getting more love. And you hear about his brother possibly taking the job over at Michigan. It's like, man, these cars are taking over, dude.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they've got the pedigree, I guess, right? Their grandfather, Lloyd Carr, renowned coach of Michigan, national champion. So football's in their blood. Those are the type, it's not Manning, right? They're not all Hall of Fame quarterbacks or anything, but certainly college football legends in that family. So, not saying that automatically makes you a good football player, but just something to think about.
All right, well, I think you have a cat being murdered over there or something, but
It's you honestly would think she just cries and jowls all night.
all right, so I did pretty well. Maybe not perfect, but I got the top seven. And let's see, you said Lenora Sellers was way down the list, which I mean I get, and you're a noted Lenora Sellers hater, so even if he wasn't, you probably would have made up some odds or something and made sure he was down there. Um, Dante Moore wasn't top five. Is that what you said?
Nope, he was 7. So right there, obviously. I think if you had to pick. So like, all right, let's go through these top 5. Let me just go through the top 10. All right.
Okay.
So we know CJ Carr's 1, Arch is 2, Mensa's 3, Trinidad's 4, Jeremiah Smith 5, Julian Sayin 6, Dante Moore 7, Josh Hoover from Indiana, 8. Gunnar Stockton, Georgia, 9. Keelan Russell, Alabama, 10. Which of those guys do you feel the most confident in? Because honestly, like the betting numbers, nobody seems confident in really any of these guys. CJ Carr is at 7.5 to 1, and then Keelan Russell's at 22 to 1. So a little bit longer odds, but really, none of them are great. Like none of them are lead pipe locks or anything like that.
Well, I can tell you who's not a lock. I think that's easier. Out of the top 10, Gunnar Stockton. Why? I get it's Georgia, but that should almost even make it worse. Like, when was the last time a Georgia QB was even, I guess, technically, Carson Beck was probably in the odds a couple years ago. When he had that pretty good, solid year at Georgia, but I mean, honestly, like Gunnar Stockton's not even Carson Beck, and that's saying something. It's like, this is not good. So I would say that's the easy one. Like, why? Why is this even here? Beyond the fact that he's a Georgia QB and SEC or whatever. I don't feel necessarily great about any of them. It's like but at the same time, I think with Darian Mensah, like what he has around him, what they've done year after year the past few years, even like what they did with Carson Beck. And once again, I don't think Carson Beck is some amazing quarterback. So I think Darian Mensah is leaps and bounds ahead of him. And look at what Carson Beck was able to do last year. Look at what Cam Ward was able to do the year prior. And you can even say that Darian Mintz is in a better situation than either one of them, with Malachi Tony there as a second year player, bringing in Cooper Barkate, a player that he already knows, and other high end talents and everything. So I think it's kind of I think I don't want to say it's a guarantee or anything like that, because I believe in Arch. I think he's going to have a great year with Cam Coleman and the other players there. Julian Sainz still gets to throw to Jeremiah Smith and Chris Henry and whoever else they have there. And we've talked about how much we like CJ Carr, so I think I agree that it should be a close race. But if I was going to lean anyone, I think it might be Mensa.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there. I think Mensa should be number one. So, you're getting 11 to 1 on Darian Mensah right now. I think that's probably the bet that I'm making. CJ Carr, as much as I love him as like a Devy player, as a future NFL quarterback, like I just don't know how good that team's going to be this year, for one, and who he's throwing it to. I know that he didn't really have anyone to throw it to last year, but nothing's really changed. I just don't think he's going to have any sort of like gaudy numbers to stand out as like a Heisman winner. He would really have to take a big step forward, which is possible. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think the long shot out of the top 10.
If he does, though, it's Jordan Faison to the moon, right?
I think so. I just drafted him in a supplemental, so I hope so. I think the guy I was looking at down the list would have been Keelan Russell at 10. Like, let's say he goes out and has a decent season, obviously more than a decent season, but takes Alabama into the playoffs, for the first time in how many years. Kind of resurrecting that program, even though it feels like they've been good the whole time. Like they've been missing the playoffs ever since. I can't even think of the coach's name anymore. These coaches move around so often, but I think Keelan Russell down there at 10. He's got Ryan Coleman Williams to throw to. He's got Latsier Brooks. He's got, what we think is going to be a good running back with Xavier Crowell, what we think is a good freshman receiver with Cedarian Morgan. By all accounts, he's looked good in the spring game. I could definitely see him having a solid season. The thing is, like true freshmen, it just usually doesn't happen that they go out and win a Heisman. So that's why I'm sticking with Mensa out of that top 10. You're still getting really good return on your money there. Even though he is the third best odds, I just think that that's what you got to do if you're going to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I agree. And Russell, to be fair though, Russell is a true sophomore, a redshirt freshman, not a true freshman. So.
That's true, right? So that would be like, I think Tim Tebow did win it as a redshirt freshman. So it has been done before.
Yeah, it's rare, and
Yeah.
and you're asking a lot, especially for an offense that hasn't been overly amazing for the past few years. So ever since Nick Saban, quit or retired. So I don't know. Where is JKS on the list? Because I'm wondering, I bet that even though it seems like he wasn't even in the top 10, so obviously the odds aren't amazing. I feel like he would be a hot name, at least in like the C2C community, to bet on for a possibility of being it. But once again, you're talking about a true sophomore and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So he is 65 to 1. And I'm not going to count how many names he is down the list, but let's say 20-ish. He's like 20th in odds.
I mean, I don't hate those odds. Like I don't love JKS, but I mean, I think he's in a good situation at Cal, and I think that they've brought in pieces that we like in the wide receiver core. They've had really good recruiting and things around him. I I would not. It would not blow my mind for JKS to take a step forward this year and actually be something. Because right now, people are drafting him as the number one overall Devy QB and stuff. I can't get there yet, but I see it. I see, I see the vision in people. I see what they want to believe and are hoping. But it's just like any of these young players. Like they would need to take a pretty big step forward, and the problem is that we've been doing this long enough, Andy. Like we see how many players don't take that step forward, and yet every single time it's like, oh no, all he has to do is just take a step forward. It's like it's so easy, it's so simple. That's why like two people do it a year in the entire world. Not even just in like Alabama or Florida or wherever. Like no, literally the entire world.
Yeah.
Two men do it per year, and that's it.
Yep. I remember it wasn't too long ago that Jackson Arnold was the QB1 in all of Devy because all he had to do was take that little step forward. And yeah, we all know how that went. So yeah, I think JKS is probably a decent pick. I try to think of because they're in the Cal's in the ACC, which doesn't make any sense, but I believe they're in the ACC. So I that's what I'm looking at. Like I want to get a guy who's in one of those conferences that's still a P4 conference, but maybe not so impossible to try and run the table in. Obviously, Miami's in the ACC, so it's going to be hard to win it all against them. But you could certainly do pretty well against the Virginia Techs and the Virginias of the world and the Syracuses and Boston colleges. So, you could get a playoff spot just by getting 10 wins in an ACC schedule. Same thing with a Big 12 schedule, right? So, I'm looking down the list. I'm seeing Bear Bachmeier, who's at 65 to 1. Maybe that's not a bad idea. Connor Wigman, 100 to 1. If Connor Wigman can take Houston into the playoffs, he goes and runs for 800 yards and, has a bunch of touchdowns along the way. Just that's where my mind goes a little bit. I'm just looking down the list a little bit more here. So he's up a little bit further. Demond Williams is 55 to 1. And again, I'm not going to count all the way down, but let's say he's right ahead of JKS at 19 or 20. Somewhere around there.
I guess he technically, the odds don't even say, but I guess technically he has a more difficult path being in the Big Ten. I guess
Right.
you would think, but I guess we haven't actually seen the schedule, so maybe it's not that bad. I don't know, but you would think technically he should be facing a little more talent, a little more defensive minded teams and stuff like that. But obviously, we know with the rushing ability, Desmond Roebuck, blowing up last year as a true freshman, he should take a step forward as a sophomore. They brought in some other players, and I could see that being a decent throw 55 to 1. I feel like I would rather throw that money at 65 to 1 on JKS, honestly, than Damon Williams. But I don't hate the Damon Williams. I was kind of thinking his odds were going to be a little higher.
Yeah, and I was just looking through the list again. Another name that I just saw from the Big 12, Drew Mestamaker. Just based on sheer stats alone. Like, let's say Eric Morris, the guy who came in from where were they at, Texas or North Texas last year. He brings in the whole team, right? Drew Mestamaker, if he can run the Big 12 in that Eric Morris offense and throw for 35 touchdowns and 4,000 yards, and they get in the playoffs, then Mestamaker, who's at 80 to 1, seems like a pretty decent shout as well. Just kind of a long shot, but you don't got to risk too much money to make a ton of money.
Yeah, I'm so out in Devy and C2C on Mestamaker. Like so many people are in on him, and I can't do it. That being said, it is the Big 12, and they probably have more continuity, on that team than anyone else, in all of college football. So it's even though technically they're on a new team, they're really not. So I won't say that it can't happen. I'm just not a I'm just not a fan of. Well, I won't say I'm not a fan. I don't really care about Mestamaker. I just don't believe his numbers will translate to him all of a sudden taking a step up in competition, even if it is only slight, and being amazing or anything like that. So, especially when you're talking Heisman, now, if you want to talk about like winning the Big 12 or something like that, like I'm not really going to argue with you about that kind of stuff. But you start talking about winning the Heisman, I just don't think Mestamaker has it in him.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you, but I'm just trying to go down the list here and see if there's anyone else that um, I really like. Is there any like? So we obviously know Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver, but let's like think of non-quarterback positions. Is there anyone else that you would consider making a bet on? And I'll let you know if they're on the list here. I'm sure they are. There's a lot of non-quarterbacks on here, but the odds are certainly not in your favor.
Uh, all right, so I don't truly believe this, but just the way that people talk about how Justice Haynes is going to be run at Georgia Tech, like, is that a possibility on the list? I know he's obviously well thought of in the community as far as Devy and stuff. We've always been a little bit lower on him, you and I. You've come around, I think even more so than I have. Don't get me wrong, I still like him, but like people talk about him being the next Jeremiah Love and stuff, and I'm like, let's pump those brakes there, pal. Like that's just not it. And he has no receiving ability, or he hasn't had that. I know he said he went to Georgia Tech to work on the receiving, and he wants to get more receiving in his game and stuff like that. But is Justice Haynes anywhere on that list, or am I just blowing smoke here?
He's on there. He's down the list quite a ways, but he's ahead of certain running backs who I think have a better shot than he does. He's
Okay.
ahead of Isaac Brown. He's ahead of Deshaun Bishop. Justice Haynes is currently plus 25,000, so $250 to one. So you bet $1 on Justice Haynes, you'll get 250 if he wins the Heisman. Um, I obviously, yes, I've come around on him, right? Like, I really think him, in addition to like Mark Fletcher, should have been in this year's draft class because it was lacking in running back talent. And I really think he kind of diluted himself by staying another year. And he's playing with a guy that I really like, Malachi Hosley, who was an FCS transfer last year. And kind of stole the backfield from Jamal Haynes, from Georgia Tech last year. Jamal Haynes is a senior who came back after running for 1,000 yards 2 seasons in a row, and then Hossley comes up from, I forget what school he played at, but FCS, and kind of just takes the job from him midway through the season. So I just don't think that Georgia Tech is going to be eager to not give him any touches, because they are obviously willing to give him playing time over a guy that was established there. So I just don't think Justice Haynes is going to get this massive workload at Georgia Tech. I could definitely be wrong. I don't know what the reports are saying, but it just doesn't seem like something that's going to happen for him, in my eyes.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I mean, like I said, I think that one was more about how other people feel about Justice Haynes than necessarily how I feel about Justice Haynes. And I think there's another one that is going to be on that list as well. That's the exact same thing. Keywan Lacey. What are his odds? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted. I know. I just had to scroll up to find it, but here we are at plus 12,500. So bet $1 to win $125. Kwan Lacey. Same odds as Nick Marsh from Indiana and Camario Taylor from Mississippi State. Interestingly enough, before we talk about Kwan Lacey, because I just see Nick Marsh here at 125 to 1. I'm pretty sure, and let me just confirm this. No, I guess I was wrong. But Charlie Becker is also on here. I just need to find
I was
him.
going to say, were you thinking that Becker was higher?
Yeah, no, Charlie Becker's on here, but he's a little bit lower than Nick Marsh. So, to me, if you're gonna make a bet just based on those two, I'd take Charlie Becker because you're getting better odds and he's probably gonna have better stats. But realistically, I don't think either one of them is gonna win. But yeah, with Kwan Lacey, I really think Kwan Lacey is at risk of losing a lot of touches this year. I think he's gonna, and not because he's not good. I mean, he isn't good, but not because he's he's doesn't deserve them, but because last year there just wasn't another running back on the team that could do anything as well as he could. This year they got a guy that I like, Joshua Dye, who played at FCS last year. I think he's a guy that could take, because what did he have? An 80% market share, dominator last year?
Probably.
Maybe even higher.
I don't look at rushing dominator and stuff, but he probably did. I mean, he definitely had the majority of the touches.
Right. So it seems like he's a guy that's at risk of losing, maybe 75 touches this year, which would not be good, obviously, if you're betting on him to win a Heisman.
Yeah, you're not saying he's losing his job, but he had 306 rushing attempts last year in 15 games, albeit. But I mean, still, that's a ridiculous amount. That's got to be beyond your G6. In P4, that's got to be probably the top, if not at the very least, top 3, top 5, something like that. 306 attempts. There's not too many players that are doing that. You think about Jeremiah Love. I don't even think he broke 200. 180 or something like that rushing attempts. Obviously, he was splitting with Jadarian Price, but just goes to show 306. That's a lot. I'm looking. There's 33.
The only one who.
Yeah, Logan Diggs had 33 rushing attempts. I mean, Trinidad Chambliss had 133, but he definitely had a solid 85% of the market share, the dominator or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think, if you think about other guys in P4 that maybe even came close to that, you're talking the Emmett Johnsons of the world. So, not that that's a comparison between the two, but that's just what you're dealing with as far as, who's getting the touches. I just don't think that is going to be the case multiple years in a row, especially the new coaching staff, bringing in, guys that have a lot of experience, like Joshua Dye that I just talked about, who's a 1,000 yard rusher in his own right. I feel like they're not going to lean so heavily on Lacey this year, so I wouldn't be betting on him for any sort of like volume based award like the Heisman.
No, this is a good little tangent to go off on. I actually just brought it up. Keywan Lacey absolutely led. He actually led all of college football. He did not just lead P4. He led all of college football in rushing attempts at 306. Cale Helams at Army had 304. The closest P4 player was Ahmad Hardy with 256. He had 50 less rushing attempts than Keywan Lacey, and that is probably the biggest thing that we can talk about. If you guys have been listening to us for a while, we appreciate you, but we're not the biggest Keywan Lacey fans. But this is what we're trying to show you. Like those numbers look amazing when you look at him. He had 18 touchdowns, and he had this, and he had that, and it's like, yeah, he had 300 attempts. No one even came remotely close to that. Emmett Johnson, who is the last player that we've talked about, was just a volume king, and really took advantage of all of that volume. Had 251 rushing attempts. And he was actually the next player after Ahmad Hardy, the next most rushing attempts. So it just goes to show how many touches he had. And yeah, he did okay with it, and he's fine. Like I don't. Keywan Lacey is a NFL running back. He's just not a great NFL running back. He's not going to be that. He's going to be your plotter that is okay, or is going to fill in for 1 year. Your Damian Pierce, your whoever, Kyle Monangai, like that kind of guy. He's not your Jeremiah Love, Ashton Genty, Jonathan Brooks, whoever. Like he's not that by any means.
Yeah. No, I think that, and I really do believe that a lot of not only Devy people but NFL draft people are settling into that take too. Like I think the more that people are looking at it, like, wait a minute, 300 carries. Okay, now you start looking at like on a per touch basis. This isn't looking as great as what we thought it was. So I remember, geez, like January, everyone's saying like Kawan Lacey, he's a 102 in Devy or something, right after Jeremiah Smith. And now it's starting. We're backing off that quite a bit, right? Like Kawan Lacey's now like a second round startup pick if you're in a C2C league right now, which I might not agree with, but you're definitely seeing people be less and less excited about him. Maybe it's because of us. I don't know. I like to think it's because of us. Uh, but yeah, I just really think at the end of the day, he's not going to get 300 carries this year again. Uh, the raw numbers are obviously going to go down with that. Um, maybe that's what could be better for him though. Maybe if you start depleting that volume a little bit, we can start to get more of those explosive plays. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a possibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the more rushes you have, your rates are going to go down almost always. Even if you're a really efficient runner, your rates are still going to go down if you have 300 touches. So his efficiency should go up. That being said, his efficiency is not good. So it's not anything like it can go up and he can still just be a decent player, not anything amazing. He's at 7.1%, big time run rate. That's barely at the like minimum threshold I'm looking for. And then you look at everything else and the receiving, and it's just not. I mean, receptions per game. It's just not what I'm looking for. The yardage is there and stuff, and that's great. But once again, he had the most touches or the most rushes of any running back in college football. And you start thinking about it that way, and you go, "Oh, it's not nearly as amazing as we thought it might be." So, all right. So I think, I mean, I'm guessing there's some other running backs on the list, but they're probably no names. I mean, is there any? I guess before we move to the wide receivers, or back to the wide receivers. Are there any running backs that like have to be mentioned? They're a little higher than maybe you thought they were, or thought they would be.
Um, l- well, I'll say that I'm pleased to report that the highest running back was Bo Jackson, who is my Devy running back one. I know not yours, but still not great at 100 to 1 odds. Um, and then Ahmad Hardy, who we mentioned, he's got the same odds as Kwan Lacey. Mark Fletcher, guy that we talked about as maybe somebody who could have gone out last year. He's right in between, like Hardy and um, Justice Haynes at 175 to 1. Here's an interesting one, though. Hollywood Smothers. Everyone's been saying Raleek Brown, Raleek Brown, Raleek Brown, right? Like he's going to be the 1A in that rotation there at Texas. Hollywood Smothers is the first running back mentioned. I don't even think Raleek Brown is on the list. So there's, I
I think
mean,
that's more of just hating on like they hate on Hollywood Smothers more than like thinking Raleek Brown's anything amazing. I don't know why. Like Smothers has done nothing wrong, but I just I feel like for some reason people just love to hate him.
yeah, well, the highs, FanDuel.com likes Hollywood Smothers. So, and then another interesting one, um, and this is not a running back, but I'll just go back to the quarterbacks briefly. Um, Syracuse quarterback, I think Steve Angeli is the guy who got injured last year, and everyone's saying he's going to come back and be the starter. Um, uh, Amari Odom, who's a transfer from like Kennesaw State that I called out earlier in the offseason, he's on here as the a Heisman favorite, granted 300 to 1, before Steve Angeli's on. I don't think he's on here at all. So keep your eyes
Well,
open for Amari Odom, everybody.
yeah, if you want to waste some money, bet on Amari Odom or Stephen Jelly, either one. All right, let's get
Right.
to some wide receivers. I'm sure there's a few that are still there. I'm
Yes.
guessing Cam Coleman is somewhat high.
He is somewhat high. Let me find exactly how high though. I think, yeah. So he is the second wide receiver. No, no, he's the third wide receiver listed.
Ooh,
Sorry.
I was gonna
Um,
say, is he? That was the next question. Is Cam Coleman the second wide receiver listed?
no, he's
Is it
third.
Malachi Tony?
Uh, eh, yeah, Malachi Tony's number two. So Cam Coleman's at 80 to 1, um, which is the same as, where am I at here? So JKS was 65 to 1. So a little bit worse than JKS by about, I don't know, 10 spots, 7 or 8 spots. And then Malachi Tony is 35 to 1, which is like, let's see, 14th. No, 15th. 15th in the rankings. So I don't know how you feel about that. I don't feel good about it. Cooper Barkate isn't even on here. If he was, I would be hammering that over Malachi Tony. Again, neither one of those guys is going to win the Heisman, but
No, I think it's one of those things where a guy as a true freshman who reclassified, so technically he shouldn't even be a freshman until this year, went out and got 1,000 yards receiving in his like what true senior high school year, and I think at that point you have to put him in the odds and you have to think highly of him. But once again, we've seen these players take so much time, and most of them don't ever become more than a one trick pony. Every once in a while, you see Casey Concepcion who actually does take a step forward, but even then, like Casey Concepcion didn't take a step forward from gadget guy to the wide receiver one in his class. He took a step forward from gadget guy to wide receiver five in his class. Like we like Casey Concepcion. We don't think he's Jeremiah Smith. We don't think he's Cam Coleman. We don't think he's Tet McMillan or Malik Neighbors or anything like that. So I think the giant leap that people are asking him to take is just so giant that I will just bet against it, every day of the week. So even though he's at second odds, I would much rather take Cam Coleman, even though once again, Cam Coleman's probably not going to win the Heisman. It's probably not going to be wide receiver. Obviously, if it was, it probably would be Jeremiah Smith. And even he didn't even get that many votes or anything last year, if I remember correctly, right? So I mean, like, just think about what he's
Yeah,
done
yeah, yeah.
through
I
his.
mean, it's never going to be a wide receiver. Like the only time it was ever a wide receiver was Devontae Smith at Alabama when he like broke every receiving record in college football that year. Just insane amount of stats. So like it's not going to be a wide receiver. It always goes to the quarterback, sometimes running back. Because running backs can sometimes carry a team like a Derrick Henry or something like that back in the day with Alabama. But it seems like if a wide receiver has a truly amazing season, that likely means the quarterback also had a really great season, and they're probably going to give it to the quarterback in that scenario.
Right. I mean that year the DVS. Don't get me wrong. Devontae Smith is a badass wide receiver. Like he deserved the Heisman, especially that year. But he deserved that Heisman because he was dealing with Mac Jones and I mean, the quarterbacks that year that he was competing against were Mac Jones, Trey Lance, who's not even in the Heisman running because he was FCS. Um, Kenny Pickett, like those are the players that he was going up against when he won it. So, that's like, yeah, of course he's going to win it. When you're talking about that, if anything, a wide receiver would have won it last year when, we were just talking about Fernando Mendoza and no one else, Ty Simpson or whatever. It's not going to be this year where, even though I might not get as excited as some people going, oh, there's 8 great quarterbacks. I can still say that this quarterback class is better than last year's quarter, or this past year's quarterback class.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to think between Mensa, Arch, even CJ Carr apparently, one of those guys is going to put together a truly great season and have, some Heisman moments along the line. One or more of those guys really. So it doesn't feel like this is the year that you get one of those weird positions that come in and makes it to the finalists table for the Heisman. But stranger things have always happened. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how the season plays out.
All right, so you talked about how you almost kind of technically hit on Ashton Genty a couple years ago. We've had some good calls here, but now you have to pick one. Who is your bet for the Heisman winning? It doesn't even. Well, yeah, I guess technically it doesn't even have to be who you think is like the best odds, because I mean, I guess that would be kind of boring. But like, who's your Ashton Genty this year, where you're like they have legitimate odds of winning, even though technically he was 100 to 1 or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Um. So there's nobody in FCS or not FCS. I mean, like the Group of Five schools, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like where I got the Genty call from. Is like this team's going to go undefeated. They're going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be on Genty's back. So I want to pick somebody from like the Big 12 because I just feel like that's the wide open conference, um, and that's why I kind of lean Connor Wigman at 100 to 1. He's like your quintessential college football quarterback, and those are kind of the guys that you know get the awards and then don't necessarily get drafted at all. um, but if he takes Houston, who I think is nominally better this year than they were last year, if he takes Houston and gets into the playoffs, runs the table, not saying they run the table, but gets into the playoffs, wins the Big 12, which is entirely possible, and throws for 3,500 yards and runs for close to 1,000 yards more and has like 30 plus total touchdowns. I think he's a name that's going to get brought up in Heisman conversations. Just as long as the team continues to win. If the team sucks, then it's obviously out of the question. So it kind of hinges on whether or not Houston can be viable in the Big 12. But that's where I would lean towards if I'm going for like a big boy bet where I'm going to turn $1 into $100. That's kind of where I'm thinking, because you want to pick a team where it's somebody who has playoff aspirations, and then generally you're going to pick the quarterback on that team. And Wigman's a guy who's at least had some success statistically so far in his career.
No, I like that call. I like the idea of going with the Big 12 because, man, it is just it's not the Big 12 it used to be, and even then, it was always a step down from kind of the other. The Pac-12 and the Big 12 are always kind of step down from the Big 10, SEC, and even the ACC at times. Um, but I feel like it's even more of a step down. This past year or the past like couple of years, they started bringing in some of those American teams, and it's just not it's not quite the same. But I don't know. I'm struggling with this one. I really think I already mentioned JKS is kind of and what'd you say is 65-1 for JKS? I kind of feel like that is my go-to, but um but even beyond that, like I feel like Lenore Sellers is either going to completely bomb this year or he's going to just blow up and win the Heisman. Did you say what Lenore Sellers' odds were?
Yeah, let me pull him back up again though. Um, 40-1. 40-1. So a little bit better than JKS, but still definitely a long shot.
And it is a long shot, but we've talked about it in the past. Like he got a major upgrade at head coach or OC. I think it was OC, and everyone's just talking about how different this offense is going to be, how different everything's going to be. I'm kind of falling for it and believing in it, and so I'm trying to believe in Lenore Sellers still. But I'm also very aware, like it's literally going to be he either takes a giant step forward or he's literally the same he's always been, and then we'll probably never talk about Sellers ever again. If that's the case, and Andy will be even more happy for it.
I'll talk about him. I'll never let you
Oh
forget.
yeah, yeah. I won't talk about him anymore. Andy will bring it
Okay.
up whenever he can.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's enough about that. There's no other there's no long shots. I mean, it's going to be a quarterback
Well,
if it's a long shot, right?
yeah. The only well, I don't even know if I want to talk about some of these guys. I want to talk about some of the embarrassing ones on their list that we
Oh,
already
okay.
talked about Gunnar Stockton, but there's some ones further down that I don't think deserve to be as high as they are. Um, Marcel Reed is at 30-1, which is higher than Lenoris Sellers.
Oof, oof.
Um, and then Bryce Underwood is at 35-1, again higher than Lenoris Sellers, higher than Demond
Jeez.
Williams, higher than JKS. Like,
Bryce Underwood probably
come
has
on, guys.
better odds of losing his job than winning the Heisman.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Um, there's a
And I mean
there's not a
actual
world
odds,
where
not the FanDuel odds.
yeah, I would say so. They're saying 35-1 to win the Heisman. Yeah, he's probably at like 10-1 to not be the starter at the end of the year.
Yeah, how do those numbers
if we're
work
if
out?
we're being for real right now, yeah.
I mean, what
Um,
what what are
what
Tommy
else is?
Carr's odds?
Yeah, no, they didn't put him on here. That'd have been savage if they did. Um, Will Hammond at 55-1. Maybe they're thinking he takes over Texas Tech. That'd be another Big 12 play. Nico Iamalieva is the other one I was going to mention. He's still on here.
Oh,
Same odds as Drew Mestamaker at 80-1. And Avery Johnson, same odds there, 80-1. So
I mentioned Sam Levitt, but you never really said where he was at or anything. Where's he at?
so he's up there. Um, he's ahead of Marcel Reed. He's at 27-1. I think that's good for 13th overall.
I mean, I don't
And
even hate that,
John Mate-
honestly. I don't mind that. And I'm not
no.
even a huge Levitt fan or anything, but like I don't mind that ranking and those odds.
Yeah, really, like there's a chunk right outside the top 10. So you got Keelan Russell, who was 10th, I believe, right? Yeah. Jaden Maeva at 11th at 25-1. I don't hate that. He's a guy that could probably put up some decent numbers at USC. John Mateer at 25-1. If he's fully healthy and, doesn't suck, there's a chance that might be a good bet. And then, yeah, Sam Levitt right after that at 27-1.
Oh,
So
where's Josh Hoover?
he was in the top 10. He is right behind. He's 8th behind Dante Moore at 15-1.
Oh man, I completely missed that. He's 8th. Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah.
just a reach. That's a Indiana won the championship last year reach.
Mm-hmm. No,
Josh
that's the
Hoover.
Fernando Mendoza effect. The Kurt
Yeah,
Signetti.
Josh Hoover's not winning the freaking Heisman, guys. Don't make that bet, please.
I wish you could like short the odds on these like somehow, but obviously that you
Right?
can't do that.
It'd be so much easier.
But, yeah.
Like, no, no,
Oh, yeah.
Josh Hoover's not winning. No, Marcel Reed's not winning.
Right, I could just go down the list with all these guys. Like, yeah, I'll take. I guess that's what Kelsey's for, right? But,
Not a
they,
sponsor.
They
Yeah.
probably don't. Yeah, not yet. We're not a Kelsey partner.
All right. Well, yeah, that was fun. I'm glad that I was able to get the majority of the top five. It took a bit, but I wasn't too far off. So I, I'm
No,
always
yeah, I
scared
thought
when
you
we.
did pretty well.
Yeah, I'm always scared when we go into these games, and somehow I always end up doing better than I thought I was gonna do. I guess I do know ball, but it's still scary when you're under the spotlight and it's like, hey man, I got to answer these questions, and you're trying to figure out,
Absolutely.
is it my rankings? Is it are we going off of my rankings? Are we going off of consensus rankings or whatever? It actually just so happens. I believe you said the top five. All right, so these are my slash Devy Beth's Devy QB rankings. All right, Arch Manning, Darian Mensah, Julian Sand, C.J. Carr, Trinidad Chambliss, Lenore Sellers, Dante Moore, Keelan Russell, and then I start losing you after that. But weren't those at least like the top 10 or something like that, or in the top 10? Oh, you're muted.
No, they were all in the top 10. Uh, yeah, Carr, Mensa, Arch Manning, Russell, and
Sand.
Sayan. Yeah.
Chambliss. Oh, Sellers was the one
Chambliss
that
is
was
in
not
there.
top 10, right?
Right, Sellers is not.
Okay, so I have Sellers at 6, but so he's the only one. Dante Moore, Keelan Russell, they
You
were
gotta
both
fix
top
that.
10. I gotta fix that.
Yeah. I think as soon as he records a stat this year, he's gonna plummet out of your rankings because I know how Beth works. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
So, sorry, so you told me the PPR points per touch were holding Sellers up, and so I actually went in
Yeah.
and I took out that freshman season because it was a small sample and it was kind of messing everything up, and by doing that, he actually dropped one spot behind Dante Moore. So Dante Moore moved up one spot, Sellers dropped one spot. So technically you were right that it was holding him up, but I also told you like PPR points per touch are not that big of a deal for quarterbacks. So like I don't care nearly as much as I do. That's more for like almost like Devy and C2C stuff than like predicting to the future I wouldn't say Devy. That's more for C2C stuff and CFF stuff than predicting for the future. For Devy purposes and for NFL purposes, PPR points per touch for QBs is more of like a afterthought or like a minor thing I throw in there just to kind of show some upside, but nothing too crazy.
Fair enough. No, we'll see what happens.
We will
You could
see
have a
what
great season.
happens. So you're betting all your money on who was it? 100-1 for somebody,
I'm going
80 to
Connor
1.
Wigman because it
Connor Whiteman.
Connor
Yep.
Wigman. The Cougars were 9-3 last year. Houston. They lost to Texas Tech, West Virginia, and TCU. If they can win two of those games, they're now 11-1 team with Wigman, who will have run for probably 800 yards and thrown for another 3,000 and probably has 35 total touchdowns. Yeah, I think that guy ends up on the stand, at least as a finalist, if you ask me.
No, I like it. I wish he had worked out as an actual QB, as a Devy QB, because we all liked him a lot coming out. It has not worked out. There's been a lot of injuries and stuff, but you know what? He had a pretty solid year last year. So I once again, I don't hate that call. And then I said JKS or Lenore Sellers as my kind of go tos of who I'd be throwing some small money at. Obviously, the big money I think we'd both be throwing it at Darian Minsa because barring injury and stuff like that, which you can't really worry about when you're betting unless there's a reason for it. Yeah, I'd say Darian Minsa is maybe not the favorite according to FanDuel, but our favorite at the very least.
100%. Yes.
All right. Well, somehow, some way, I was looking at it around the 30-minute mark, and I'm like, man, we don't even have that much to talk about left. I don't. This is going to be a short one, and somehow, some way, we still went over an hour. So here we are. Andy, this was your idea. I guess technically it was my idea. I don't know. But this is kind of your thing. You're our odds man, our lines man, and all that kind of stuff. So give us some words of wisdom so we can get out of here.
Well, I was just thinking when you said, because I was looking at it too. We're at like the 35-minute mark. I was like, oof. But you know who bailed us out? It was Kawan Lacey. Our mutual hatred for Kawan Lacey saved the episode once again. So, words of wisdom: continue to push him down that ADP, guys, because Kawan Lacey is not him. He is going to lose all the touches this year and continue his downslide to just being a good NFL running back, but certainly not anything great.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing that it's hard for people to understand is like it's not we're not saying he won't make it to the NFL. We're saying he won't be amazing in the NFL. He's not going to be great in the NFL. And for running backs, you don't care about those players. Like beyond like, oh, bye week fill in or whatever, like you do not truly care about those players. So don't draft. We saw like a consensus Devy draft or whatever, and Keywan Lacey went at 105 overall in that draft, and it was a bunch of experts and doing all this, I'm like, man, that's just way too early. We can't be doing this, and we didn't even talk about Jaden Boss, but we're not going to do that tonight. We're already over the hour mark. We are going to get out of here, but we appreciate you guys listening. Obviously, we got a shout out from DLF this week, so if we have any new listeners or anything, we appreciate you listening. Generally speaking, we have more in-depth talks and stuff like that. We're not always just diving into lines, just kind of bullshitting back and forth, whatever. So, this isn't necessarily like your normal pod, but we like to have fun. We like to mix it up and try a little bit of everything. So just if this wasn't your jam, stick to the next pod. Give us another shot. If it is your jam, obviously, let us know. Give us your 5-star reviews, all that kind of good stuff, and check us out at the Gridiron Ratings YouTube channel so we can hear from you when we're going live. Appreciate you guys listening. We will be back in your ears as soon as possible, hopefully with Aaron Wilcox back in tow. Until then, we're cashing out. See you guys.